All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and we are live right here with a very, very special guest. We actually have the one and only, the legendary Reggie Wright Jr., former head of security of the iconic hip hop label Death Row Records. We got him here live on the line. How are you doing this evening, Reggie?
Oh man, great, great. How about you? I hope everybody out there had a had a Merry Christmas and going to have a Happy New Year's.
We definitely did have a wonderful Christmas down here in Canada. We actually had a white Christmas for once, so I got to say that was actually definitely a blessing for down here in Canada. How was your Christmas out there in California?
It was wet. We had some rain here, and then I'm about 30, 40 minutes away from L.A., but it rained all in our the county of L.A. and Riverside. So we had a wet Christmas, but it was beautiful, and I love the rain because it clear up all of this smog and dust and get everything all pretty.
I definitely hear you on that. I heard a lot of forest fires were actually going on in California. I don't know if it's still going on, but the rain is definitely good to help put the forest fires at ease.
Yeah. This time of the year, the forest fires will kind of slow down because you don't have those temperatures. You still have some wind and stuff, but like you said, that rain kind of knock it out and help the firemen and keeping everything wet instead of dry. So right now we okay right now.
But diving into the interview, Reggie, because I know you're a busy guy, especially around the holidays, man. So I'm not going to waste much time. I'm going to dive right into this. But I want to take you back to the very beginning, even before the Death Row days, where you were actually a police officer at the Compton PD. I was wondering what actually made you decide to pursue a career in law enforcement.
Well, my dad, everybody, pretty much everybody heroes should be your father. If it's not, or someone close to you that's like a father to you. I was fortunate enough to have my father and grew up in the household with my father. And so that was my father's second love. His first love was, to be honest, had always been basketball. And it's probably too old for most of your listeners and the people on, but he coached people like Roy Hamilton and David Greenwood and the guy that's a referee now in the NBA, Leon Woods, people like that, Reggie Theus, Dennis Johnson. He coached them back in the day when he was a younger man. But then he, became in the law enforcement in about 1976. He started working in law enforcement, and that's pretty much was my, I guess I was about, 10 years old at that time. And so that's what I knew growing up, is being around a police officer in the house, and I wanted to be like Pops. I didn't want to be like Mike.
And I got to say as well, man, because especially back in the day, like the Compton PD, you guys must have saw some, like, it sounds bad to say crazy stuff just on the streets there, man. Because I think the Compton PD, I don't think they actually exist. They're a defunct precinct now, but I could only imagine what you guys actually dealt with on those streets.
There was 100,000 citizens in the community. At the time back then, the racial background was about 70% blacks, 29% Mexicans, and then 1% others. And so my point of saying all of that to say now that it's on reverse, but it was a crazy time, and that was during the rock cocaine era, growing up, and starting to take off, and the gangs were starting to really pick up. And with the rock cocaine and the gangs, that came the different type of weapons. I believe our President Ronald Reagan dropped a lot of the rock cocaine and the narcotics into the city to pay for his for the Contra war that went on. And then I also want to believe that they dropped weapons off into our communities as well. And so it was hard because of all the things that was going on in the community at the time. So yes, it was.
And also, as well, you are actually the founder of Right Way Security. That actually, I believe you founded that actually in the early to mid '90s. I have to ask you, what actually made you decide to go from the Compton Police Department to actually your own security company?
Well, two things. Number one, because I did have an on-duty traffic accident where I messed up my right ankle, and I knew I had a I knew my career wasn't going to be long anymore. I had already did about 11 years with the city of Compton Police Department because I got hired on as a jailer in 1985, and then about 94, 95 is when I opened up the security company. And the second reason was because I was solicited by Suge Knight, who was a childhood friend, who I also played high school football with, and I knew and saw was doing well, and he needed security for his company and mainly for him, and because of the Snoop trial and the liability that his company was in for having people that wasn't licensed to carry a gun working for him. And when you work $100 million, $200 million, and sometimes you got to kind of try to do stuff the right way. And so that's why I came up with the name Right Way Protective Services, actually, which was a security firm.
And I have to ask, was it like a difficult process actually, just going from a police officer to like a security firm? Because I do know it's a kind of the same aspect of the job, but was it a difficult transition for you?
Initially, it was. I had missed the law enforcement, aspect of the job or the things that I used to be able to do and stuff like that as a police officer. However, working with Death Row, and I was making a lot more money. I had a different type of responsibility, less stress. I was traveling a lot. I was still young. I was only 27, 28 years, about 28, 29 years of age at the time. And so what type of, with the rappers or being around the music company, being a young man at the time, it brought on type of a lifestyle that I probably wouldn't have had in law enforcement. Traveling, staying in the Four Seasons Hotel, and then living, going to football games, the Super Bowls, and heading 50 yards on the 50-yard line, and of course the ladies and stuff that you met, being out there on the road and stuff. So that helped a lot. Working for a company like that and being in the security versus just being a police officer, getting up, going to work, to a 9-to-5 job. So that was a different type of lifestyle, which in my opinion, for that time it was good. However, now being a 55-year-old man, I wish I might have continued my career in law enforcement for the whole 30 or 40 years.
And also as well, when you actually touch base on the Snoop Dogg side of things, I was wondering, what was it like actually just being able to work alongside Snoop Dogg and kind of be his bodyguard with your firm? Like, I gotta say, you must have saw some pretty cool stuff, especially bodyguarding Snoop Dogg, because at the end of the day, you're right there for all the parties and whatnot, so you guys must have definitely had a fun time with him.
It was a great time, great atmosphere. Like I said, I was mainly with Suge, to be honest. I was around Suge. I wasn't so, per se, a bodyguard. I hired bodyguards for the particular artist and for the company. And so, but yeah, we all still went out together because Suge was the type of CEO that was hands-on with his artists and out there in the streets and at the concerts and places like that with his artists, where most CEOs, you don't see them out there hanging out with their artists like Suge was back in the mid-'90s.
And also as well, the one thing I've always personally wanted to know, because through the years, that's me just being a hip-hop fan and a hip-hop journalist, I've heard a lot of rumors and speculation pertaining to Dr. Dre on why he actually left Death Row Records. I'm sure you probably heard them all from, the Eazy-E situation to like a whole bunch of other stuff. But I have to ask, since you were there behind the scenes, do you know why Dr. Dre really did leave Death Row Records? And if so, why did he actually leave?
It was a combination of a lot of things. It was he didn't like the atmosphere of the assaults, the alleged assaults and stuff that was going around. Every time you go out somewhere, it was some type of gang activity going around. He was a music guy. He's a musician. He was just more in the craft of doing music. He didn't like the strong hand tactics that were that kind of unfortunately went along with the music business at the time. But more so, people don't like to hear it, don't want to hear it. But it was because he found out his partner was having a relationship with his, it wasn't his woman at the time, but it was his baby mama, being the Chalet, and I think that hurt him. We don't like to admit that as men. He'll probably never admit it. She definitely won't admit it. But that was something that was going on, and I know when that came out, it was right around the time when he definitely made his exit.
And I gotta say as well, I definitely agree with that statement as well, especially when you actually had a family with that individual as well, because like you said, that's his baby mama. So it definitely probably would have been a really awkward environment for him to be in, especially working as well.
And with your business partner, it's not like an employee or a guy that works there or something like that. This is you're supposed to be your 50-50 partner. So yes, I'm sure that was very uncomfortable for Dre to see.
And I have to ask one thing as well, because I do know, like, all of us, and I know probably yourself as well, watched Straight Outta Compton movie. When Dre actually left, was there any animosity between himself and Suge Knight? Like, did he really actually give up all his royalties to leave, or like or was that just kind of like the movie aspect of the story?
When Dre left, there was some negotiation done, prior to that. But when Dre did leave Death Row, he left the whole company to Suge. Only thing that ever became an issue later on was the rights as far as streaming, because nobody knew or no one knew of the streaming rights in 1994 to 1995 to put that in the contract. And so that's the only issue Dre ever had about monies and stuff. Said, well, yeah, I gave you the rights, but I didn't give you up these streaming rights, which he did later during the bankruptcy. But Dre left with nothing. He had a great deal in place. Interscope was pretty much like, Jimmy Iovine was like, okay, y'all can't work together anymore. Dre, come over here. We create a situation, and I got money for you to give you a deal, which he did. He did 2 albums. Prior to that, The Firm and another album that didn't do well, where Dre was no home runs or no base hits anymore. But then guess who came and saved him? That rapper that we call Eminem. He came and he saved Dre, and Dre's a billionaire now.
And also as well, in the year 95, Suge Knight actually, as you already know, of course, bailed out Tupac. And I heard that, like, Snoop Dogg was actually the reason why Suge actually made the decision. I was wondering if you can actually tell us the story behind that. And is it true? Did Snoop Dogg actually persuade Suge Knight to bail out Tupac? And if not, what is the real story behind that? Yeah,
that's not true. And Suge did make a statement before on an interview not an interview, on the phone conversation between Suge and Snoop, when Suge was trying to get him to put some money while he was in jail up and help him do some stuff, where he said, he said, I think in the conversation, you're one of the reasons that I went and got Pac out of prison. But then you listen to the interview he just did recently with Gully's with his podcast. You will hear what Suge told the truth just in the last week or two, which I always knew it was. It was Tupac's wife at the time. Her name was Keisha, that was called up there and left messages with Suge that said that, hey, Pac he wants to see you. He wants you to, well, actually he just called him first to say he needed some money. And Suge shot and put some money on his books. But then secondly, she called back and said, Pac would like to see you. And that's when Suge went up there, and Pac explained to him how he got the situation working, where, people was promising him, give him money, like Madonna and people that was his friends at the time was supposed to be coming through and put money to get him out on an appeal bond. But no one was coming through. Interscope had left him pretty much for dead. They didn't want anything else to do with him. And even though he had a #1 album out, Me Against the World at the time, selling 2 million records, they still felt he was unrecouped because of all his legal bills and stuff at the time. And so Shug went up there and started talking to him, and then that's when he was informed about the appeal bond. And he said, "Let me get back with you. Let me get out and go and see what I can do." I mean, we made 2 trips. Matter of fact, we came in your little part of town. I don't know if it's near you, but I remember the limousine that came and picked us up from the airport to go to the prison. The limo driver told us he was stationed out of Canada, and he came from Canada and picked us up to take us to the prison, because I know the prison that Pac was at, it was on a borderline somewhere, up near Canada. And so we went up there 3 to 4 times, and that's when David Kenner was able to get him out on an appeal bond. Of course, people always say, well, Sugar didn't put up the money. No, he didn't put up the money. Interscope gave the money, advanced the money to Death Row, but he had to pay it back. Just because you go and charge a gift or something like that on your Visa card or American Express card or whatever, does that mean you don't have to pay for it? Does that mean you didn't pay for it? No, you just got an advance, and you are the one that responsible for the bill, and eventually had to pay for it, which Suge Knight did. And that was basically just for him going up there visiting Pac and learning that he could possibly get out on a appeal bond, which all Pac was out on, during the time he was on death row, at the time of his death.
And when you actually brought up his wife a few minutes ago, a lot of people tend to actually forget that Tupac was married for a very brief time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the marriage might have got annulled after he got out of prison or shortly after.
That is correct. That's correct.
And also, as well, I have to ask, when Tupac actually landed on death row and actually got out and whatnot, what was the atmosphere like? Did he want to, did he go right in the studio and, make music? What was the atmosphere like when Tupac actually first got out?
Well, on the day he got out, he was feeling good. He went and did that song, Ambition of a Writer. I remember the first song that he did, the one with the Pee Wee Herman beat on it, or sample. He did that one. Daz and them had already pretty much had it done. And, Daz was one of the first producers to work with him. And he gave him that song, and he worked on that song. But it was mainly a party atmosphere where everybody was drinking and smoking and stuff, to the point where Tupac got so high that, drunk that day, where I remember him falling and kind of busting his head on the pavement from passing out, because he was feeling so good. And so he went back to the hotel at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills and had to rest for a day. But he was back in the studio working hard every day, where I think he did the All Eyes on Me album in 3 to 4 weeks, if that.
And it's crazy when you said 3 to 4 weeks, because that thing went diamond, man. And I know for sure it's still selling units like crazy today.
Exactly. And most people don't know the reason why it's still not selling that much is because the deal is up pretty much with E1, where all of the masters of Tupac is about to revert back to the estate. And if you go and try to download some of the music currently right now, or for streaming or whatever, you can't buy it for streaming right now because they're in the process of getting the ownership of all this music back. And so the family is going to be doing the estate very, very well in the next few months from getting a new advancement on a deal. And I'm sure the deal is going to be great to their advantage, because we all know what he'll sell.
And the one last question I do have pertaining to Tupac, and I do want to say that this might be a controversial question, so if you do want to skip it, we most definitely can. I'm okay with that. But the night of September 7th of 96, were you actually out there in Las Vegas? And if so, what do you actually remember from that night? The night that, as everybody knows, the night of Tupac getting shot.
Yeah, I was there. I actually wasn't in the entourage. That night I elected to go and make sure that the club was set up properly, because we was having a fundraiser for a boxer because Tupac actually had to do some community service for that night, and it was also another one of Suge's entities that was trying to get the final licensing to be open in there, the Club 662, where Tupac and Suge was on their way to when the shooting happened. And so, yes, I was in Vegas, but I wasn't in the entourage when the shooting occurred.
And I have to ask, like, the city must have been in absolute turmoil that night, just with everything going on, especially being in the 90s, nobody really knowing what's going on. Nowadays, you can just open your phone and get a news report, but back then it was kind of like word to mouth, so the whole city must have been going crazy.
Oh, yeah, that and just the movement of the city at the time. I mean, it was jam traffic, it was packed. Mike Tyson fights in the 90s was like, the closest thing I can tell y'all about that maybe the generation, that's about 10 or 15 years younger than us could relate to is people that went to All-Star weekends in Vegas in 2007 on how the Super Bowl atmosphere is or NBA All-Star weekend is. I know y'all in Canada, so I guess y'all hockey games be like that. Not sure. Or maybe a Drake concert or something like that. But the atmosphere around Vegas was crazy.
And also, as well, after Tupac's untimely passing in late '96, you actually took over operations over at Death Row Records. While Suge Knight was actually in prison. I was wondering, can you tell us a bit more about that experience? And of course, what was it like actually running that iconic label for that time?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was at a bad time. What I mean by that now, artists was unhappy. Was going through the lawsuit with the estate and trying to get them satisfied, and them getting their rights, and us trying to retain our rights. And so, the FBI is investigating us for racketeering and stuff like that. So it was a hard time, but we all went through it. We worked through all of that. Everything got worked out. And then until Suge came home in 2002. But, people always said nothing was done. No music was put out during that time. That's because they forget. I mean, we did a Tupac greatest hit album. That's probably sold at least 6 to 8 million copies by now, if not more. If not diamond, because it was a double CD. We put out Gridlock soundtrack, gang-related soundtrack, Dad's album, Revenge, Retaliation, Get Back. We did the Still I Rise Tupac Outlaws album. We did a Dogfather album, which nobody want to take credit for because it didn't do that well. We did, some Dog Pound 2002 album. We did a Chronic, Chronic 2000, Chronic 2000 album. We did the DVD of Death for One Cut, one of the first labels to ever do a DVD, putting out stuff about the music and the record companies that we did. We did the soundtrack to that with Death for One Cut. So we did several different things during that time where I probably couldn't consider during that time period. We sold just as many records as any, not streaming, but records as any other label that, other than Death Row and Def Jam with the DMX stuff, that did during that time period. Of course, Master P had his little run for a couple of years. But so I think under my watch we did just as good, at least 15 to 20 million records in that 5-year period.
And I remember as well during that time as well that you guys actually released my personal opinion, one of the biggest, most iconic Christmas records of all time, man. You know what I mean? That's still one of my absolute favorites, Christmas on Death Row.
Yeah, Santa Claus, go straight to the ghetto. You love that song, huh? Yeah. We did that, to be honest, that was done under Suge's watch, to be honest, because that was right. He went to jail in October of '96, and that came out right around November of '96. that and the Greatest Hits album, the Death Row Greatest Hits album. So he had pretty much had his hands, and even Machiavelli and Dogfather, he had his hands in those four albums. So I can't take credit for any of those. But those did happen in the fourth quarter of 1996.
And also as well, were you actually the head of Death Row actually until 2002, or did someone take over a couple years after 96?
No, she got out of jail of August of 2001. August 2001, but he was pretty much letting me because he was just trying to get back and get his feet wet. So he let me continue to run the company until about January 2002, where then I left once I got the deal done with Koch Entertainment at the time, which was later E1. Well, I got all of this catalog release from Interscope and Priority and took it over to Koch Entertainment, which pretty much saved their company, which they eventually, made billions of dollars and sold their company for. So Koch Entertainment / E1 Entertainment, they were saved by Death Row at the time, and that was all because of my relationship that I developed with Michael Koch, a guy named Cliff, and Alan Grumblock at Koch Entertainment.
And the reason why I was asking that, because I remember in 2002, and a lot of people sometimes forget about this, but for a very brief period before she passed away, Lisa Lopez of TLC was actually signed to Death Row Records. I have to ask, were you actually responsible for that contract? And if so, how did you guys actually sign her to Death Row Records?
In fairness, she didn't. We called her Nina. She was as a solo artist. To be honest, she never did really sign to the company. She was committed to us, but she didn't sign because we were trying to get that worked out with Steve Stouts, who had some management over her, and her record label as a group that she had. I believe it was with Arista Records, and so we did music on her, but she was never signed as an artist official as Nina. And so that's why you probably never heard any, because in the vault, there's several songs by Nina, Lisa as a solo artist, but there would have to be some things worked out in order to get that done. But, there's nobody there to tell, and to tell Koch and all of them, the dealings behind all of that, and to go and just sit down and try to work it out with Arista Records and get it all worked out, because it's all about making money. And I'm sure her estate, probably would love for something to come out. So I could see it eventually coming out. But it was done under the name of Nina. And she was at home when she came and because she actually called him, but she was staying in a hotel, and they met up and started hanging out and started messing around, and that's how that deal went. But unfortunately, she went on a break. They had kind of had a disturbance or something where she went home for a little while, and then she went out, because she was really into some health conscious and spiritual stuff, and went on some type of little retreat where she had a car accident and later, died.
And I gotta say, she always reminded me of a female version of Tupac. I don't know. I don't know if it was just me, but just the way she presented herself, the way she was just outspoken. I don't know. She always reminded me of the female version of Tupac.
She was a writer. She was a ride die. She, she burnt her man's house down for allegedly cheating on him. So Lisa was Lisa. But yeah.
And one of the last questions I have pertaining to Death Row Records, and I know all of us fans know that, you're very open when it comes to the Death Row side of things. And the one thing I have to ask is, what is one of the most craziest things you actually witnessed during your tenure actually at Death Row Records? Because I know you were there from mid-90s, 94, 95, like you said, all the way up into 2002.
Man, there's so many different things. You know, you got the violence, you got the good things, the great things, like you doing Mother Day events and busing or sending limos to, you know, hundreds of women in the city of Compton and L.A. area that husbands were in penitentiaries or in prison and that didn't have any fathers, and treating them first class to concerts like what's that boy named Ryan Isley, the Isley Brothers, Escape, Hammer Time, Pop. I mean, people like that. You know, of course, the Death Row artists. Who else? Christopher Williams at the time, who was hot. You know, he had them in a big old, one of the most expensive hotels in Beverly Hills in a ballroom, giving them Death Row chains, gold chains, you know, goodie bags to take home. Just pampering mothers, because his thinking was, hey, it's Mother's Day. Most of these ladies not going to get anything, and let me just take care of them and show them a good time. At least I can't do it every day, but at least for one day out of the year. So on Mother's Day, they won't be looking at the kids, but they look just like their daddies, and they're mad at the daddies because they're not there to help out. And you know, just to give them one good day of living like a queen. And that's the memory I get of Suge Knight. You know, all the other stuff that happens, you know, it happens. I'm not going up here and try to put a halo over his head because he did bad things, but his bad things definitely don't outweigh by a percentage, less than 1% of all the good things that he did for people that I saw and know that he did. I remember when he was in prison, there were some kids, he was sitting in the cell watching the news about some kids that needed a playground or something like that. And he called me, woke up that morning, and first thing in the morning, he called me when he was able to get to the phone. Reggie, I want you to reach out to this location and ship $25,000 to them to buy them a new swing set and replace, you know, some stuff for this particular playground that, you know, that he had heard in the news up there that was, you know, needed some help, some financial help. And, you know, nobody ever heard about it because it wasn't like he wanted no press or anything like that. Numerous of people that I know that he didn't know, you know, that family had, that he just heard on the news or his mother told him about or something, his girlfriends at the time. Somebody told him about where they needed money for funerals and stuff, where he'd go and have me just meet or set up a meeting with the parents and stuff like that, and just give them a check, you know, for $10,000 just to say, hey, just, you know, sorry to hear what happened, but hope this helped you in some type of way. Stuff like that is what I remember about the company Death Row, which would ultimately gave Suge Knight, who was the owner, you know, the ability to do those things for people. But that's what we're all about. That's why I think God got us here, is to help each other, to have good characters and help each other. But like I said, there were bad things done, but in his mind, he always felt it was him going to defense for something. Of any of the incidents that you ever heard that he did, it was really because he went to go to defense for someone.
And also as well, I remember as well, like, you know, back in the day, Suge Knight also did like an annual turkey drive, and I remember like the video was actually on one of the turkey drive videos was actually on YouTube, and I remember watching it in its entirety, and it had amazing performances and also special guests from, like, obviously Tupac, Snoop Dogg was in attendance, Danny Boy, where they actually gave turkeys to the underprivileged families, and I gotta say,
that was done at the Compton swap meet. Well, we built a stage at the swap meet, outside the Compton swap meet, and we're giving away turkey. But he did that every year. Toy drive, turkey drive. He did that every year. The turkeys. He did a lot of stuff. He did with the Brotherhood Crusade out here. There's a guy by the name of Danny Bakewell that, you know, owns the L.A. Sentinel now. He did a lot of things with that man, with Danny Bakewell. I remember he had some Nintendos when they first came out for the children's hospitals in L.A. they built like a little castles, and they had Nintendo games inside of them, where they were all delivered to hospitals, in the LA area and stuff at the children's hospital. That was a normal. We done went and passed out toys at children's hospitals for Christmas. All of that stuff he did. I mean, we'd be in a mall where we all would be, shopping and buying tennis shoes and stuff like that. You'd see a little kid in there with some, raggedy shoes on or whatever. And, they didn't know who he was. People didn't know who Suge Knight was until about 95, 96. He would just tell them to take off the shoes, pick out a pair of shoes, and buy them shoes. He was a very charitable person. And that's why I think he's so offended and so angry now, and been angry since, the mid-2000s and stuff, because of the rap that he gets. And some of it didn't deserve it, but because he really did have a big heart. And he felt people didn't give him that in return, such as Snoop, who would be probably doing a table dance right now in somebody's penitentiary if it wasn't for him, if he hadn't committed suicide by now, who, got on the phone and promised him $5,000 or $10,000 to send and help do something, that never came back and did it. So it's stuff like that bothers him and that hurts him. And but that's the Suge Knight that I know. And like I said, I'm not saying that he didn't do things. Maybe some of the things didn't deserve it, but not to the point where people have forgotten about him. And I'm just trying to justify why, when sometimes he come off angry or with anger or venom in his heart, the reason that he does.
And I look at it like this, people can say whatever they want to say, but they can never take away what that man has done, because at the end of the day, I know me as an interviewer, I might get some hate in the comment section for this, but I don't really care at this point, because if it wasn't for Suge Knight, we wouldn't have countless projects. He was an executive producer on so many legendary projects, from All Eyes on Me, right down to Doggy Style, like so many iconic records that if it wasn't for Suge Knight, we probably would not even have those records today that we all enjoyed growing up listening to. So for that, I got to say thank you to Suge Knight for just doing and producing and actually just creating helping to create Death Row and just giving us so many iconic projects.
I agree with you on that. And the main thing, though, that I agree with, we wouldn't know about ownership of the masters. I don't think we wouldn't know about people knowing that the record company recoups everything, and they make you pay for your videos, and they make you pay for all your studio time and all of that, where he was the ones that go in there and try to say, no, let's split these things, That's what he did for his artists, and so he's trying to teach the other artists, y'all demand that. Y'all split, hey, let's do these videos nice, and instead of charging me 100%, only charge me 50%. That help building up your label. But wearing the necklace, the gold chains around your neck representing your record label. Tell me a label that did that prior to him. You didn't see all your artists and everybody walking around with depot chains prior to that. There was stuff like that you don't get the credit for. The street team stuff. They're really pushing your street team into different markets. Going to radio. Do you know how much radio play there was? Tell me, has anyone heard Fuck the Police on the radio in 1991 by IC and all of them? Any really NWA songs on the radio? No, you didn't hear nothing but, the Chronic and G-Thing and stuff like that on the radio. Now, you heard, some of MPMD. I don't even think MPMD or Mr. President. You definitely didn't hear Ghetto Boys and stuff on the radio. It wasn't until Death Row came around and made it the type of music where you heard G-Thing and all of that on the radio like crazy. Most people don't know about the music channel, The Box. I remember Suge used to make them play his stuff over and over, where he was making the record label pay and buy The Box, where you used to have to pay for videos. Well, that's all you saw, was running back to back to back to back. Stuff like that. He helped make happen. The Source Wars. Dave Mays and Big Zeno owes him big time. Who wouldn't spend the money at the Source Award? paid for all those props and stuff like that on the stage at the Source Awards. When Biggie and Puff came out, they just went on the stage and did it blank. He had cages built on there. When he went on American Music Awards, he had a low rider placed on the on the stage and all of that. Rappers wasn't doing props and stuff like that. Suge Knight brought all of that to the game because he wasn't scared to invest his money into the branding of the label. We had Michael Jackson do Thriller and all of that. But prior to that, look at Murder Was the Case. Most of y'all go and pull up Murder Was the Case video. That was a 6 to 8 minute movie. That was pretty much what was done. Who did stuff like that other than Michael Jackson back in the 90s? Suge Knight did a lot of stuff to help the rap game and the music game go on, in my opinion.
And also, going into to today's side of things, you are also the co-host of an amazing YouTube platform, Bomb First. I was actually wondering, how did you actually get connected with the Bomb First community? And of course, what is it like actually being a co-host on that YouTube radio show?
My partner, John. John Hyland, to be honest, John Hyland was a young kid, probably like 15 or 16 years of age. That was smart. Was a smart kid. He was a kid named Kyle, I believe Kyle name was. And they were in Atlanta and stuff like this. And this was like in 1997, 1998, where they came to me, and, well, not me, to, somebody at the company, but I had to approve everything, and was like, we just want to build y'all a website. Who in the hell, y'all just don't know how we was in the 90s, how behind we were, and the things that y'all, know of and social media and stuff, y'all know about. He was saying, we just want to build a website for y'all, and we'll work it for free, and we'll do this and do that. And I was like, okay. And so this is when I met John in 1997. He was the one that came and created the website for Death Row, and told me how I had to go and pay a lady $5,000, which was crazy, and I was mad to buy our domain back because somebody else had went up and bought up all the domains for Death Row and all of that because, we didn't know anything about that. And he's the one that taught me how to do all of that. And, well, me and this guy named Cedric that he actually dealt with at the time, that was like Shiv's person, my assistant at the time, and then later on Shiv, his name was Cedric, and Roy, they came and, he convinced us they convinced me into, giving this kid a shot. To the point where later we started paying John, a minimum salary, $1,500, $1,000 a month, just to run the website. And so he did that for Death Row up until, he even got hired by Wide Awake when they bought it. So John did that up until about 2009, 2010, where he came up with this website called Bomb First. And back then, people didn't know about me. They didn't know who the heck Reggie Wright was. But a guy by the name of Frank Alexander and R.J. Bonds made me famous by putting out documentaries talking about, had something to do with the murder of Tupac and Biggie and all of that, and putting out all of this negative nonsense. And so I didn't care. I didn't have, my kids wasn't old enough to read, and nobody knew about the internet and stuff, so I just ignored it and all of that. But there was a website out there called Thug Life Army, and a writer or a blogger named Anton Beatty, or Anton, I forget his last name. And John, they used to always call me periodically and say, this has been saying about you, and Frank and Kevin Hackey are saying this and this about you. You need to respond to it. And sometimes they'll catch me on the right date, and I'll respond to it. Sometimes they wouldn't. And I'll be like, man, I don't give a crap about that. But then later on, I had a son that was Reginald Wright III, and my daughters were like 20s and stuff like that. And they were starting to read and like, well, why are these people saying this about you, Daddy? Why is this? And so I was like, well, damn, y'all hearing about that? Y'all know about that? And so I was just like, okay, well, I need to start setting the record straight and clear it up. I had got to the point where I got a little free time, wasn't working as hard as I was. And so I just started responding on his channel, Bomb First, because that was who I knew and who I trusted. And we just started growing and growing and growing from there. And then, I wouldn't call myself the co-host because it's not my channel. It's all John Hyland's channel, but he lets me bring a lot of content to the channel. And so I always have a lot of respect for him for that.
And I gotta say, my apologies, Reggie. I always thought you guys were co-hosts and whatnot together. Because I gotta say, when you guys actually get going on that channel and get talking and communicating and whatnot, you guys have such phenomenal chemistry when you guys get together on those phenomenal YouTube videos.
Yeah, and I give that credit to John because John lets me control it, and he knows when to chime in because he's a music head. He knows everything about music, but he's a laid-back type guy. And so he knows right when to chime in and just when to let me go on, and then he'll let me go on, and then he'll chime in. And so I have to give all that credit to John's personality, where you have an A-type personality, which is me, got to be in control and talk a lot, and then you have a person that knows how to sit back, listen, and then respond at the appropriate time. And so that's why I think our chemistry works well.
And the one thing I have to ask is, and I do want to say this is another question, I knew it, if you want to skip it, we most definitely can, but recently you actually beat COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus. For the listeners out there, because I do know I see forums all the time, I see comments on social media of how saying it's a joke and whatnot, but it's not. It's very real, and I was wondering if you can shed some light on your experience with this disease, and of course the road to recovery, and just how real COVID-19 is, to kind of give it an eye opener for individuals to take this world pandemic just a little bit more seriously.
And I totally agree with you. Today is December the 27th, 2021. My wife and my mother, December the 27th, 2020, was called by a doctor and was told that there's nothing else they can do for me, that they suggest that they take me off the ventilator. Mind you, I did get tested positive for COVID. December the 9th is when I was hospitalized, even though I had it before then because I was feeling the effects. December the 5th. December the 9th is when I got hospitalized and later placed on the ventilator. I didn't get, well, like I said, on the 27th, which is exactly 1 year to this date, they were told pretty much to take me off the ventilator and let nature take its course. They refused. I believe to this day, this is the reason why I'm still alive, because God placed it on their heart to not listen to the doctors regarding that. Of course, a day or two later, they were called and informed that I was doing much better, even though I was still on the ventilator. Didn't get off the ventilator until about mid-February. I'm telling you people, that COVID is real. I swear, I was heavy. I was a fat man prior to that, but I have no diabetes, no high blood pressure. I had nothing wrong with me, and COVID almost took me out, and I'm still at the point now where I can't walk. I barely can use my hands, but when I woke up in mid-February, I thought I was paralyzed from the neck down because I couldn't move at all. If you touch me, I hated to be touched by another human being, to be cleaned or anything, because it hurted me. It hurt. But through the grace of God and doctors and therapists and stuff, I'm about 50 to 60% better to back where I was. I'm 100 pounds lighter now, but which is a good thing. But I have no other type of disease. I don't take any medication or anything currently, but I'm still weak to the point where I can't walk and use my hands the way I would like to. But I'm about 50% better than I was when I got off the ventilator in mid-February, and probably if you talk to me again in about March, I'll be probably in a car running around somewhere talking to you on the phone in the car. But yeah, I'm vaccinated now. People say, well, that's why you should have been vaccinated. They didn't have vaccinations back in December in the United States. I don't know about Canada or whatever, but we didn't start getting vaccinated in the United States until about February or March. It might even been March of 2021. It could have been February when we started getting vaccinated. But now I'm a component. I'm a big believer in getting vaccinated. I haven't gotten my booster, but I will be getting that when I can get 3 days in a row where I don't mind feeling sick, because everybody's telling me that you do have some side effects from the booster shot for a day or two. But hey, I'm gonna go through it, because if you went through what I went through, you wouldn't wish this on anyone that you love or have any compassion for. Yeah, the COVID is real. But
I gotta say, Reggie, first and foremost, man, just pertaining to that terrible situation, man, we've been connected on Facebook since 2019, so I was seeing posts and whatnot, and I gotta say, down here in Canada, man, myself and the rest of Outlaw Radio FM, we're definitely praying for you, man, and I'm so glad to hear that you actually beat the coronavirus, because not even just individuals that are, within hip-hop, but so many people worldwide lost their lives due to this terrible pandemic, man. And I just got to say, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so glad that you're here, that you're getting back to normal, and I really hope that early 2022 you're back on your own 2 feet and running around California.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think God got me, and I think God got me in His plans, because if I wasn't in His plans, He had the opportunity to not bless me, and He put His hand down on me, and I feel I'm blessed, and been blessed, and so it's not my time yet. He's still not finished with me. So yes.
And I have to ask, man, aside from actually, being on the fast road to recovery, I have to ask, what is next for yourself? Is there anything you want to talk about still? Anything I missed? Anything else you still want to promote or talk about? Well, we still got you here live on the East Coast Canadian dial this evening.
Well, I'm an open book. You can get on my IG, because I really don't know it. And, people have any questions or like to talk, tell me any well wishes, you're more than welcome to hit me. I'll respond to everybody on IG. I don't know it by heart, so I'll let you tell it, because I know you know it.
And it's actually cool. It's actually Reggie.Wright Jr. WRIGHT.
Okay, I appreciate that. And right now, I'm just all focusing on recovery, man, and having a good character and serving the Lord. And not in that order, because, of course, serving the Lord is top of my life, and taking care of my family and living and enjoying life. I have a retirement from my police thing, so that's pretty much how I'm living, like a retired man right now. But, there's hopefully some things in the future that'll be worked out. But right now, for the next 3 to 4 months, it's all about getting my health back and getting stronger. Yeah.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Reggie, thank you so much, man, for just taking the time out of your evening and sliding into the 97.7 FM airways, man. Me personally, I have been a fan of yours and what you've done for hip-hop for so many years, man. And I just had to say thank you. You know what I mean? Not only for just keeping a lot of these iconic artists safe during your tenure at Death Row, but also helping to actually keep Death Row afloat and just releasing some iconic projects along the way, man. So thank you so much for that. And again, man, I'm so glad to see just to hear and see that you actually beat coronavirus and that you're actually getting back on your own 2 feet, man. I wish you nothing but well wishes. I really got to say, 2022 is definitely the year of Reggie Wright Jr.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the respect that you've shown me over the years, and the respect you've shown me tonight. And I appreciate it. And whatever you need, I know you know how to get a hold to me, and you're more than welcome to to call on me for it.
And the same goes to you as well, Reggie. Anything you need as well on my end, radio-wise, don't hesitate to reach out. We here in Canada definitely got you. Thank you so much, Reggie, and definitely have yourself a wonderful night out there in California.
Respect you Canadians out there. Peace.